I don't think the SMS has answered my question about whether the full MediShield Life actuarial report can be made available. So can I urge the government to release a report like this so that independent actuaries can analyze it? This will go a long way to improve transparency and help Singaporeans understand the calculations behind the MediShield's premiums and benefits, instead of being asked to take the government's word for it.
The member must note that this is not proposed by government. This is an external consultant who proposes the premium, audited by an external auditor, and report this yearly in Parliament, where members get a chance to question about the proportioning of the fund and the usage. So I think transparency is not an issue here. Since its launch, MediShield Life has been providing more payouts and greater protection for more Singaporeans. The number of claimants has increased by about 30%, and the annual payouts have increased by about 40% over the last 4 years. Between 2001 and 2019, the average hospitalization bill size in public healthcare institutions have increased by about 6% a year on average. And this is affected by medical cost inflation, demographics, and medical advancements over these years. This growth in utilization and payout accounts for about 2/3 of the premium increases. 1/4 of the premium increase is from refreshing the claim limits to ensure that Singaporeans continue to be adequately covered for the majority of subsidized bills. The remaining portion of the premium increase, which is about just under 10%, supports the benefit enhancements, including those implemented since 2018, such as the extension of coverage to inpatient hospices and serious pregnancy complications. The government had considered deferring MediShield Life review and consequent premium increases given the current difficult economic situation with COVID-19. However, I must emphasize that it was important that MediShield Life remains solvent and sustainable so that it can meet its obligations in time to come when policyholder makes claims. Government has therefore provided a COVID-19 subsidy for all Singaporean citizens in the next 2 years, which will pay for the bulk of the premium increase in the first year. Taken together, the existing premium subsidies and support, the net increase for all Singaporean citizens will be no more than 10% in the first year after MediShield Life review is implemented.
So I would like to ask SMS whether the Health Ministry will actually develop a transparent framework where you actually itemize the factors that attribute to the premium increase, just like how you do it for fare adjustment formula used by LTA to justify the transport fare adjustment, so that people have a level of transparency when MediShield Life premium is increased.
The difficulty is that year to year, decades to decades, it's very hard to predict ahead of time what kind of technology will drive clinical practice. In the early years when I was a student, CT scan was not ubiquitous. When we see somebody in the A&E, if you get a head injury, the default is just a plain x-ray of the skull. That probably costs about maybe $15, $20 to do a skull x-ray, but it doesn't tell you very much. Today is almost unthinkable, just barely 20 years, that you do not do a CT scan of the head for somebody with a significant head trauma. But the cost factor for a CT scan is actually in the range of hundreds of dollars. That's easily a 10 or maybe 100-fold increase in the cost factor. But at that point in time, you can't really factor in just one single thing, a CT scan, the magnitude of utilization, the pervasiveness, and the cost factor from the technology, how it can be applied clinically. Because these also depend on clinical guidelines as well. So as opposed to a transport fare formula where the parameters and the variables are a little bit more fixed and more predictable, healthcare inflation takes into account many unforeseen kind of variables that will come along the way. So I think it will be very, very hard to have a single formula to be that level of to have that level of clarity.
So I want to ask them, SMS, whether he has the data to give us a sense how are the MediShield premiums at the compared to the levels of other countries with similarly run national schemes. Whether are we priced at the level that is affordable to our lower income groups.
If I were to make a comparison to, say, a healthcare plan from another country, I think it's very hard to find something that's exactly the same. But for purpose of comparison, if I can share some premium data from Hong Kong's VHIS, which is Hong Kong's government-backed voluntary health insurance scheme. So first is Hong Kong, which is an Asian country, pretty much similar to Singapore in terms of social construct and healthcare system, which is quite similar in the British-based kind of healthcare system. But bear in mind, this is a voluntary healthcare system, so theirs is not universal. Even then, for a voluntary healthcare system, the premium, when we compared to the revised MediShield Life premiums coming on stream before subsidies add on, that means just the raw premium after the revision, the premiums range from being 34% to 143% higher than our MediShield Life. Or you can work it out, it's about 76% higher on average across the age bands. So I think even before subsidies, our premiums for universal coverage, all condition for life, no exclusion, is already much cheaper than the one that Hong Kong has.